Okay, today we're here with one of my favorite bass players in the world, Taras Prodaniuk.
The world's not that big, Dan.
Is that how you say it, though?
Prodaniuk.
Okay, and you're from somewhere in Europe, obviously.
I'm Ukrainian.
But
Yeah.
you're from via.
Well, I have nationalities Ukrainian.
Okay, but you grew up in.
I was born in Minneapolis, in lovely downtown Minneapolis.
And
I moved to the San Fernando Valley in 1962, and I was pretty much raised in the rural portion of the San Fernando Valley.
Very good, very good. Now, tell me, what made you want to play bass? How old were you?
My brother got an electric guitar first. I think would have been 64, so it would have been about 9. And he got a little Ricky single pickup and Rickenbacker guitar, yeah. And I both of us started taking lessons. I ended up getting like a Silvertone acoustic or
What
something.
year did you say this was? 62?
64 to 66,
Okay.
64, 65. So we started taking lessons and everything, and I liked it, but my brother was actually better at it
You
than
were
I was.
started on bass or started on
I
guitar?
started on guitar.
Okay. That makes sense.
You know, playing "Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man," big hits like that, and then I was in 5th grade, and somehow the Monkees were on. The Monkees were the
Right.
TV thing, the rage at the time,
Right.
and a bunch of my fellows in 5th grade, we started playing Monkees. We had a band. We put a band together.
Played Monkeys.
Yeah, and so I stole my brother's Rickenbacker guitar and I borrowed my neighbor's amp, and so I was in the band. We were called the Coming Distractions.
Ooh.
And we played my 5th grade PTA meeting.
Wow.
That was my
first gig, huh? Excellent.
And
And
so it started from there.
what was your first bass?
First bass, I think it was like a violin, one of this, like an Electra Hofner bass.
Okay.
And I didn't get it because of Paul. I think I just got it because it was cheap.
Short scale.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you need it to be short scale? Or
No, it's just
you
what
were
I
big
ended
enough?
up with.
Okay. And what was your first real bass?
First bass would have been a P bass that I got, and it didn't dawn on me that you can actually, because it was always really hard to play.
You just thought that's the way it was?
That's the way it was. It didn't enter my sphere of consciousness that you can actually. I wasn't the brightest bulb at this point, and so I didn't know you could do these things.
Yeah.
And got to remember that back then in the late '60s, it wasn't like there was like there's a guitar a guitar tech or repair guys. It was like, hey, yeah, I can fix that.
Right.
So what I ended up doing was I was in high school by that point, and the reason why I started playing bass is because we needed a bass player in the band.
How'd you get voted in?
Because it was like I wasn't getting the lead thing, and I was just playing rhythm guitar, and my friend Dana Rosen was playing lead guitar, and we needed a bass player.
Okay.
That would have been around the Beatles, the White Album.
Were you bitter being bounced to bass, or were you
No, I
okay
dug
with
it.
Okay.
I dug it. I just wanted to play, and then I ended up I had my that P bass that I didn't know how to adjust, and it was always real stiff. But it was like a 68, 69 Sunburst.
Yep.
And I bought it from the House of Drums in Granada Hills, and what a weird thing to remember. And so, but I ended up trading. This is a goofy trade for an EBO with a jazz bass pickup routed into it.
In the rear
Not
position.
not a wise trading decision. And it was like a.
That's back to short scale now.
But it was easier to play.
Oh.
And then I finally.
What did you think all those screws and nuts and everything on a bass were for? Just decoration.
So it was just easier to play, Dan.
Okay, all right. I got
And so, and by that point, I finally, I found a Mike at Harmony Guitars, Harmony Music in Reseda in the Valley, and he was like, "Wow, there's actually dudes that repair guitars." So I took that bass in, and I ended up after that point, I bought it from a '61 white P bass from Norm Harris.
Oh yeah,
Norm's Rare Guitars.
And what was it? When did you buy that? What year would that have been?
Uh, 70, 74.
Okay, and it was a 61.
Maybe 74, 75, maybe 76.
Remember what you paid?
$350.
Cool. All right.
And it had a little pink heart on it, which was bizarre.
Sticker?
If somebody put something on it I think it was a sticker at one point that they had taken off.
Okay, now,
and it was a good bass.
it was. Do you still have it?
No.
Okay. Uh-oh. Another bad trade.
I ended up.
Trades coming.
This has to do with relationship stuff, so I'll just kind of jump around this one quickly. I was with a psychotic Italian piano player, that we decided to move to Schenectady, New York. Why? And I sold the bass back to Norm for what I paid for it.
$350.
It was about 2 years later.
61. They're
So
talking
this would have
about
been around 76.
maybe 15,000 today.
Yeah, and it was it was a slab neck. It was the whole.
The good stuff.
Yeah, the good
Anodized?
stuff. No,
Pickard, or
it was a
tortoise
tort.
at that point.
And so I ended up selling the bass back because I needed cash. So, but before that, I had bought I was playing in a lounge act in Corpus Christi, and I bought a P bass that was stripped, and it was
Finished
painted
stripped off?
brown. Yeah, it was
Okay.
painted brown,
Oh, nice.
like poop brown,
Baby poop brown?
with
That's always a good one.
tortoiseshell pickguard that was cracked, and I stripped it and put my brother stripped it and we put an ano pickguard on it. That was kind of cool, and it was a 63, 62, and I paid $150 for it. So.
Okay, very good.
And so that was my bass, and so that's what I took to Schenectady.
Okay.
But that kind of fell apart within weeks, so we ended up.
What kind of
coming home.
What kind of strings did you use on that bass?
At that time, I think I was either using Fender flats, but I might have used pyramids too. So I don't quite.
Flats, though, either way.
They were flats, yeah.
Okay. Was that because it was before round wounds were really popular, or was it a conscious choice to go with flats?
I think it was just a conscious choice because that's kind of what was coming on the Fenders.
I mean, round wounds really didn't hit hard till mid-70s.
Correct, and then I ended up getting into then the whole. I got to try to remember my sequence of guitars here. So I ended up, the next bass that I ended up buying was a Music Man.
Oh, yeah, really? So early on, an early Music Man. What year would that have been?
It was when they came out with the...
Sabre? No.
Yeah, no. It was a Stingray.
Okay.
But it had the... it had the three-tone.
Three-tone?
It had a mid-range boost in it.
No.
Could that be right?
They didn't know.
Okay, then it was an earlier one.
What
but
color?
It was one of the first Rosewood ones. That's all I remember.
Rosewood are very rare. What color was it?
Black.
Okay, and it had a white or black pickup?
Black.
Okay, probably 78, 77,
I was working at Ballet Arts at the time.
Okay. Heavy or not?
It wasn't bad. It was actually pretty light. The neck felt great.
Okay.
But then I also at that time I had bought a 72 jazz bass.
Uh-huh.
The one that I currently have, a black jazz bass from a guy named Pee Wee, really great gospel bass player in Los Angeles for $200. And I wanted to be Jocko.
Well, everybody did.
Yeah. So I put a P bass fretless neck on it, which was a mistake.
Seemed to be a pattern of mistakes.
Yeah, and then I got rid, and unfortunately, I traded away the original neck, and it ended up having a Wameth neck on it, which was superb. And as soon as they put that, and it was Valley Arts that did it, it's got a Valley Arts logo on it, but it's a Wameth neck. And I complained to Mike that I had ordered another earlier neck with ebony fingerboard that was not Warwick. Warmouth, thank you.
Yeah.
And it was just too pinky. It just sounded really kind of...
I know you as a very strong passive proponent. With the Music Man, a bass that you didn't like because
well, it was
the
another.
active was
it was
different. Because
you got to remember, I kind of came
Man,
from the Fender school where volume is up all the way.
Well, but
so
those old Music Mans, you could put them up and they'd still be okay. In other words,
not mine was kind of like on stun. If you like popped with it from the finger thing, it was like, whoa,
it was too much. It was overkill.
You, like killed people.
Yeah.
So I just couldn't. It played great, and I just couldn't handle on it, and I ended up selling it to the guy, Chuck Wright, who plays in Quiet Riot. Another one, but we would. He was
Well, now what about amps along the way here? What are we talking about?
The first amp I had was a St. George with a single 12, and then that just wasn't enough for bass. And then when I kind of got in high school, I had a really goofy rig where it was a acoustic 360 with a 260 box.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was wrong. But I ended up getting a Casino with 215s, 215-inch JBLs in it.
Casino. That's a brand?
Yeah, it's an off-brand from Custom.
Oh, okay. Padded?
Huge refrigerator.
Padded,
yeah,
like
it was post-pad.
Post-pad.
Yeah, and it was, had like silver stripes on it.
Heavy?
Oh, yeah, it was, I had a case bag for it and everything, but we
sounded good?
Yeah, it was great. High school, that was the deal.
I want to go back to high school.
Yeah.
Did you play music in school? Was there a jazz band program?
No, I didn't do that. I pretty
orchestra?
much I was in a band called our high school rock band where we played every weekend.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Huh.
And so
what was the name of that band?
West.
And you play cover music, I would imagine?
Yeah, it was kind of Deep Purple, Allman Brothers, kind of that whole bag. Some Uriah Heep, Deep Purple.
Sounds like fun.
Allman Brothers. And
did it help you with the girls?
I was a chick magnet. No. It was okay. I was young.
All right, I got you. Okay, so let's go to now, or no. So get me from high school to Dwight.
During that time, out of high school, I went to college for a couple years, and then I just kind of fell out of college. Cal State Northridge.
Okay.
Like almost 3 years. My father taught there. He's a German professor there, so we lived right by the campus. And so we ended up. I ended up moving out of the house, and I had to get a job because
you got to make money.
I had to make money. I wasn't going to school anymore. And
you worked at a music store.
I started in a place called European Crafts. It's a music wholesale house.
Okay.
And I did phone sales, and it was a music warehouse, and it was a great experience.
Selling like jobbing stuff.
Jobbing stuff like Coast Wholesale.
Okay.
You sell like strings and
Bruno.
Bruno Coast. Yeah, same deal.
La Playa.
You guys have Bruno on the coast. Is I think Cayman Coast.
Yeah,
isn't it on the
Cayman
West
owns
Coast?
it. Yeah. Which is now Fender, by the way. Everything,
Fender.
At least back to Fender.
And so, and then I ended up getting a job at a music store that was kind of happening at that time, which was Valley Arts. And at that time, that was kind of the era of where for me was where like the session guys, where you'd see Max Bennett, Chuck Rainey. I was fortunate enough. I studied with Chuck Rainey. I got to play with him.
You actually did lessons with Chuck?
Yeah. Huh. And that was before he was teaching for a period of time at a place called Dick Grove Music.
Okay.
But I was fortunate enough where he was just kind of doing one-on-one stuff, and he was great. He was awesome. I love Chuck. And but then I ended up working at Valley Arts, and when I was working at Valley Arts, I started doing. I really got into kind of doing it consciously or subconsciously. I just started networking. So I started doing
with musicians.
Yes.
Okay.
Because a lot of musicians came in, and that time Valley Arts was like.
What year were you at Valley Arts?
I think it was like 78 to 80. 70. I think 79 to about 84.
Okay. And all right. I'm sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
And so at that time, Valley Arts was kind of like the cutting edge for guitars, and it was the whole era of the Larry Carlton,
fusion-y
Jay
kind
Graydon,
of stuff.
All this like Steely Dan records. It was like whoa.
Yeah.
That was like
a new level.
Toto, that kind of whole deal.
Yep.
So in the studio, I was one of those kids that I always went to I'd go to the record stores and I always read the liner notes of who played on everything. So I was like a total kind of like a studio geek.
Geek's a good way to describe it.
Oh yeah, Chuck. Oh,
you read liner notes.
Yeah, I read a liner note. So So I'm now flash forward. I was in the music store, so I just started networking.
Putting your
and
name
started
out
getting
there.
gigs,
Uh-huh.
and I just started working a lot. And then in '84, I got a tour with Andy
Now,
Frazier.
84, are you still working at Valley Arts?
Yeah, but they cut. I went and auditioned for this tour, and we were the opening act for the Fix, 1984.
Oh, cool.
With Andy Frazier, and Andy Frazier was the old bass player from Free. Yeah. Classic bass line, incredible. And
Short
he
scale.
sang like Paul Rogers, which was wild. And he was on Island Records, and he was affiliated with.
Or did you tour with that, or did
Yes,
you just
we
play?
did. I
You
toured
did.
with him.
So that was your first touring experience.
Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah, I learned a lot.
Uh-huh.
Don't drink with English people.
Well, what I've found with the more successful musicians like yourself, usually the personality is such that you're easy to get along with because you're on stage for a couple hours. What do you like the other 22 hours of the day?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Because
but
if you're like Satan's brother, it's kind of a drag to be around.
you won't be asked back.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're with Frazier, and
I was with Andy, and we did it was kind of, I think the tour was from August to, it was only like a couple months, 3 months, and we came home. And I ended up going back to work at Valley Arts and still gigging, and then I ended up hooking up with this, they were called Little Elmo and the Cosmos. It was a 50s act. And these guys were doing like corporate gigs, and the money was great. And it was, we were like dancing and doing, the moves and had a
choreography,
pompadour and big hair.
Nice.
Yeah, it was cool. And it was a fun band. They had good singers, and there were a bunch of great guys. But during that time, during my stay at Valley Arts, I had encountered I played with a lot of different folks.
Okay.
So I'm playing with Little Elmo and the Cosmos, and that lasted for a couple of years. And then I found out that through a good friend of mine that Dwight Yoakam was looking for a bass player.
And you knew who Dwight was?
Yeah, because at that time that the alt Americana progressive country sound was kind of happening. The Palomino, I play the Palomino with different. You play with different folks, and you play the Palomino on Barn Dance Night and so forth. And so I had played with Pete Anderson in a blues
guitar
band,
player for Dwight.
who's Dwight's guitar player and producer.
Well, a little bit more than just a guitar player. Yeah.
Right. And so, and we were friends, and so I contacted Pete, and Pete said, oh, he just hired a guy. So, keep in touch, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
blah. So a couple months later, it was 4th of July, I was playing in Aspen with Little Elmo and the Cosmos.
Right.
And Pete called me, and he goes, are you going to be home in about 10 days or so, or 2 weeks?
Yep.
He goes, Dwight's going to call you, and you're going to, we're going to
What year is
audition you
this?
guys. So this would have been 1987.
Okay.
So I came home, and it was one of those, fate things, which is it's just wild how it works. So I still had the Little Elmo gig, and Dwight ended up calling me and said, okay, we're going to do these auditions on such and such a date. I'll be in touch and let you know what's going on.
Right.
But meanwhile, I had Little Elmo and the Cosmos, and they were going to Atlantic City. The gig was already kind of like, I was booked.
Yeah,
it was like double booked.
Nice.
And
Good problem to have.
good problem to have. So I auditioned for the Dwight thing, and but after the audition, I got a call back that Dwight wanted to get together and play again.
So you had already tried. You had already
we got together
auditioned.
and played. They listened to
Were you struck by him? Did you like his playing?
I liked playing. I liked the music. I wasn't a real. I didn't really learn country until I played with Dwight.
Okay.
So I was coming out of a different box.
Okay, and I know musicians hate to be put in these boxes, but I would say Dwight's country rock as opposed to just straight ahead country.
Yes.
The reason I say that,
but he's got more of a traditional country thing than country rock. I mean, he progressed. He leaned toward that, but in the earlier years, it was way more traditional.
Right.
With more, leanings toward, let's say, Johnny Horton, Merle Haggard, Buck Owens, all that stuff.
Did you like that stuff? Did you know that stuff
No,
when
I
you
did
came
not.
in? Okay.
So it was kind of
No, I
like
did
on the
not.
job training.
Yeah.
But I've been blessed where I pick up on stuff pretty quick. Because prior to that, I had done I ended up playing with this place called Cabaret Tehran, which was like a Persian gig where everything's in 6/8 and it's in C minor and I don't really it's in Persian, so I'm not I can't. There's no lyric that you can follow, and the melodies, it's a Phrygian thing, so it's a whole different scale thing. But I was, my ear was developed enough where I could follow it and get it.
Okay. Dwight started doing pretty well. I mean, selling
Well,
records.
let me tell you the story.
Yes,
Little element. So I ended up. So we were supposed to rehearse again with Dwight, and I never heard anything back from Dwight. And at the same time, I was rehearsing with Little Elmo and the Cosmos because we were supposed to fly to Atlantic City and do 6 weeks at Harris. And so we're rehearsing. They're working up a new show. We're doing dance steps and stuff. And I come home and I kept. It was the day of the answer phone, and I kept calling on my machine, and it kept going to. It kept telling me that I didn't have any voicemail. So I was like, damn.
Uh-oh. I think I see where this is going.
So I thought, like, okay, I guess I didn't get the gig. So I didn't get the gig. I was
Right.
going to that place. I pretty much let it go.
What you didn't have was a good answer machine.
Correct. I didn't have a good answer machine. So I came home, and my answer machine was lit up. It was like red. So I play it, and Joachim calls me up. Dwight calls me up and says, Taras, you got. So we start rehearsals next week on Thursday. So
How long did you ignore that voicemail? In other words,
I had just gotten home.
So how long had it been on there?
That day.
Oh, okay, all right.
I mean, I was rehearsing. They were rehearsing. Little Elmo and those guys were rehearsing all day, and I didn't tell them I was rehearsing. Auditioning for Dwight because
Right.
they'd bust a gasket if I was doing it.
Yeah.
So it's the music business, so you just kind of do what you got to do. So, but we got a sub. I rehearsed with them. It ended up I took care of some other business with them that I came through.
So it worked out. It worked out.
Yeah. But that's how I got the Dwight gig.
Okay, that's cool. And one thing I like about Dwight's stuff is that he does use his band on records.
Yeah, which is unusual.
Which is good for you. Yeah, which is unusual.
Great for me.
Yeah.
Especially being under the tutelage of Pete Anderson and the
Right.
way, because you really. I mean, I had done studio work, but not to that caliber.
My wife and I, by the way of the Byrds got into Dwight really heavily. We love Dwight. We went. In fact, the last concert before I started Lakeland, was a Dwight show, and we were so far back.
Obviously, you didn't contact me for.
Well,
tickets.
no, we didn't. I didn't know you, and sitting so far back, I told my wife, "I'm never going to another frickin' concert again."
I could see you saying that.
Yeah, but then
a little bit more
colorfully
than that.
Now, when I started Lakeland, it came time to start to go after some people. I knew in order to be respected in the business, I needed some guitars on stage, on big stages. And I got you had done a little article in Bass Player magazine, and I knew the people there, and they were gracious enough to give me your number. I don't know if I sent you a letter.
You sent me a letter.
A letter.
Yeah.
And you called. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
And it was. I didn't know anything about you. I just you had this exotic name, and then you wore these big puffy shirts.
Yeah, my puffy shirt.
The puffy shirt. Yeah, it was
puffy
like,
shirt.
I was like, sure,
Kramer.
this guy was. I
Seinfeld
thought sure
puffy shirt.
This guy's from France or something, and then. But it was such a thrill for me. That was one of the first acts that I was able to see my bass on stage. Granted, we didn't exactly have the bass for you because we were all active at that point.
Correct.
And we didn't really, start working together until we got you the passive J's and P's, which was fine. So with Dwight, you use the black bass, right?
Yes.
Can you bring that over and
see my back? This is my.
This bass you used almost exclusively with Joachim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much until I got the.
Now look at the headstock. It is not a Fender headstock.
It says Valley Arts.
Valley Arts. Now, did you put that bass together yourself?
Well, this is the bass that I bought from Pee Wee for $200.
It's a Fender body.
Fender body. It's a 72 body, and then it's the Wameth neck with Yamaha tuners. The Yamaha tuners, they were on the bass when I got it.
They work?
And they were already shot. I mean,
Okay.
The neck was already painted and everything. And the neck was actually put together for a Valley Arts bass for another client.
Okay.
And the client didn't like the neck.
And you did.
So I went and fetched to Mike McGuire that I didn't like the Wameth neck that he put on because
Kvetched means complain.
Okay. That I had a matching headstock, black one that said Fender on it, but it was an ebony fingerboard, and it just didn't sound very good. You okay?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And so I ended up putting this Wameth neck on it, and when they slapped it on, it was kind of like
You say Wameth, it's Warmouth.
okay, Wameth.
What's the French pronunciation? Anyway, just kidding.
Puffy shirt. So
Schaller tuners, you said, or those Yamaha tuners?
Yamis.
I never knew they made hardware.
And I had Will Lee sign the back of it. It says, the best, all the bass in the world, Will Lee.
Yeah. Now, so that bass and Dwight took you around the world or around the United States?
Yes and yes.
All over the place.
Yeah.
And did you enjoy playing with Dwight?
Yeah, that was.
I mean, granted, it's country rock, so it's not. But you're not playing just straight ahead country where you are locked into the left hand of the piano player.
No, it wasn't that. But there were times when I would have to double with Skip Edwards, and that was kind of a. Once again, it's a whole different bag because
Right.
as a bass player, you're kind of like, son, just let me handle the bottom. You just kind of voice your chords a little closer to the middle. Uh-huh. But it's a traditional country thing where with Skip we got to the point where he and I could just kind of like look at each other and kind of we'd follow each other on walking. Skip Edwards
plays piano with.
Yeah, like when we do Please Please Baby or one of those really fast walking shuffles, we could just pretty much walk collectively.
Was Christie on the gig when you got it?
No, when I got on the gig it was '87. That
Talk about drummers.
The drummer was a guy named Davy Crockett. That's his real name. He's from Dallas.
He's got parents that have a sense of humor.
And the guitar player was Eddie Shaver, Billy Joe Shaver's son.
Okay.
Who passed away a number of years ago from overdose.
Rock and roll. Rock and roll.
And the fiddle player at that time was the original fiddle player, Brantley Kearns, who was later replaced with Merle's fiddle player, a guy named Scott Joss.
Okay, so you worked with Dwight. You began to get a little bit more involved in the producer chair, a little bit, or anything.
Yeah, that had a lot to do with Pete.
And I found the tone and on the bass to be wonderful, and it obviously sounded like somebody who knew about bass and cared about bass produced those records. So it makes sense to know that you had a little bit of input there.
Yeah, I can't take all the credit because Pete worked with an engineer named Dusty Wakeman. Now,
Okay.
Dusty works for Mojave now. Dusty's a bass player. So, and then the other engineer when we were recording at Capitol was another bass player. So there was Peter Dell and Dusty Wakeman. So it was like bass player fest.
Okay, well that's good. I mean, you got people that care.
Yeah.
And no.
So they were all over.
Buried in the mix.
They were killed it. They were great. They were awesome.
The production of those records is fantastic.
Yeah.
I recommend anybody who wants to hear how to play bass in that vernacular. That's some killer stuff. So.
But it was actually pretty. What was awesome about it? One on-the-job training experience was in '88. Oh, I take it back. In '87, Dwight had contacted Buck Owens. Now, Buck Owens hadn't played out since late '70s.
Oh, really? He was in hibernation?
Yeah, he was just retired. And Dwight contacted Buck to come out and play. So we were at I think it was like the Bakersfield. I think it was a Bakersfield festival. We were playing in Bakersfield, and Buck we worked up this little medley, "Tiger by the Tail," "Act Naturally,"
right.
and we just kind of
good stuff.
Did it, and Buck got up there and played, and he was kind of rusty, but it's Buck Owens.
Yeah.
So in '88, when they recorded "Streets of Bakersfield," which I got,
beautiful. Is that a
played on
Grammy winner?
Yes, that was. Yes, it was.
Okay. So you have Grammys.
Yeah. Well, I don't have a Grammy, but I played on it.
You played on it. I
Yeah.
thought they give Grammys to people that played on it.
Don't.
Okay.
And so, so we were rehearsing with Buck because Buck was coming out, and Buck was, you could see that Buck was like a very stern leader.
Okay. Let's just say Buck is from Bakersfield.
Yes.
Okay, so
I think he's from Oklahoma originally.
Okay, but he's not a Nashville guy.
Not at all. West Coast country.
West Coast country. Okay,
Yeah.
and that's obviously Dwight's biggest influence on his is
I wouldn't say. Well, Merle's
pretty strong.
Hagg's
too?
pretty big with Dwight as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's anyway. It's a California sound.
Right. Okay. So okay, Dwight gigs.
So we're rehearsing with Buck, and Buck turns to me and he goes, "Son, every time before you go to the 5 chord, I want you to play the 1 chord on beat 4."
Really?
So it's bum 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 bum. So he always wanted to hear the root before he went to the 5 chord, which is kind of like a trad country thing, because if you that way you're not giving the 5 away before you go to the
Giving it away
from the 1.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you learn all these things.
That's
You
cool.
know, it's where it was
Learn from
it was,
a pretty good guy.
pretty good source. And then Buck had this other thing that he did, that cagey old bastard. We were playing. I had it was the '80s, so I had big
Long
hair.
Big hair.
And so he said he did an interview at some point where they said, "Well, Buck, why'd you come out of retirement to play with Dwight?" And Buck goes, "Well, I thought he had a chick bass player."
You're kidding.
Yeah. So that was kind of.
I mean, no offense, but I don't know that you make a very pretty girl.
No, I didn't think so, but hey.
Who knows? That's funny. All right, so you do the Dwight thing. At what year do you decide to leave Dwight?
I did the Dwight thing till about 2000, 2001. And I got called to play with Lucinda Williams.
Right. Okay.
And Dwight was off for about 6 months.
Okay.
We were down. And Frank Collari, Lucinda's manager at that time, contacted me that, Lucinda's Essence record was out and they were trying to put a band together. Mm-hmm. And I was recommended by Bob Glob to Frank. Because
I remember all this because
gave
I knew Bob and
they
you.
pitched Bob the gig first, and Bob didn't want to go at that point. And so, and I said, yeah, I'll go and do it.
And Lucinda is a magnificent writer.
Yes.
Sings wonderfully.
Yeah.
Bit of a handful, though. Yeah. I mean,
she's an artist.
Yeah, I got you.
A really talented artist. Yeah.
And you got to open up a little bit more as a player, obviously, compared to Dwight. You're playing rock and roll now.
Yeah.
Singer-songwriter, yes.
Singer-songwriter, alt Americana, yeah. What was great about that band on that Essence tour, it's kind of interesting how that evolved, because she basically, I don't know who actually put the band together. It was, I think it was Don Heffington and Bo Ramsey. Bo Ramsey was Lucinda's
Heffington was
guitar
the drummer
player,
at the time.
and Don Heffington was the drummer. I think Keltner did the record, and Tony Garnier did that Essence record.
Oh yeah, it's a great record.
It's a great
wonderful record.
Yeah. And so we were touring on that. So they created this whole band together, but it was like a 7-piece band. They had like 3 guitar players and a keyboard player. So the band was really big.
It was good too. I can tell you that. I saw it a number of times.
But the band kind of evolved when we first started, because it was huge, and we went and played Austin and everything, and she loved it. And then she ended up getting rid of 2 of the guitar players.
Okay.
And she replaced 2 of the guitar players with 1 guitar player,
Pettibone?
Doug Pettibone.
Right.
He came. I contacted Doug and said they're looking for a guitar player, but you got to get to Nashville to do it. So Dougie showed up and auditioned, and she just loved Doug.
Great.
But the band kind of evolved.
Well, Heffington left.
No. We toured with that. Well, and then we had a keyboard player named Mike Ramos there, who played with the Bodines. He's an Austin guy, really fine player. But it ended up at some time that I think Michael's father was passing, and so Michael had to leave the gig. So we ended up stripping the band down to 4-piece. So 2 guitars.
Did you prefer the bigger band or the 4-piece?
The 4-piece band was plus Lou, so it was a 5-piece band actually. Okay. So it was something that just kind of happened where the band just clicked.
Right.
And what ended up happening was there was this incredible space that just happened.
And you got, as with your previous employer, she used you guys on the records.
Yes.
Which was also
good
for you.
Yeah.
Right.
But that band never actually recorded. We did some. I think we recorded some stuff for. We did a blues record that I can't remember the name of the title of it. We recorded a couple tracks, but there's footage of that band playing.
Good. Yeah,
It was
I
a great.
saw it.
It was an
I
awesome
enjoyed
band.
it. When did Jim Christie join?
So the following year, that would have been 2001 or 2002.
I remember you played here right after 9/11.
Yeah.
Played Chicago.
Yeah,
Like the next day.
that was with Don. That
Okay.
was with the old band.
Okay.
But then Lucinda wanted to make a change, and so Don didn't come back, and so we had to find, and Bo did not come back, so we had to find another guitar player and another drummer. And at that time, we had a keyboard player, Phil Parlapiano, who had joined up on the end of the Essence tour. A great piano player, great keyboard player. And what ended up happening was we did. I talked to Lucinda, and we started auditioning drummers. And so we ended up getting Jimmy Christie, who at that time was working with Dwight, because I worked with Jimmy for at that point.
I always say it, and I'll say it again. He's one of my favorite drummers of all time.
He's one of the finest drummers ever.
A very Keltner-ish kind of guy, but I mean, in his own thing, he does his own thing.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic. And so that band evolved, and we ended up starting with a guitar player named Bernie Larson.
Okay.
Bernie Larson and Doug Pettibone. And we kind of toured on the ass end of the Essence for the second year.
Okay.
With a slightly different band. Bernie played guitar and Doug played guitars with Phil and Jimmy Christie. So the sound was it evolved a little bit. But what ended up, we did a run for, I think it was about a couple months. We came home, and I remember going to dinner with Lou, and I said, Lou, we should just strip the band down. And it was a mutual thing where I said, she plays guitar, just bass, drums, guitar, and Lou. Because that was like her original band when she had with Donald Lindley and John Chambody and Gurf. And so we ended up, and she said, well, I wrote some songs, so we'll throw these songs together. So that's what ended up becoming World Without Tears.
Okay.
That record. And so that we showed up at the Alley in North Hollywood, and we played the songs down, and
that's it.
It was kind of playing like with Miles Davis. It was just like, whoa, this is really cosmic. It was great. It was really
seeing
musical.
an artist at the top of her game.
Yeah, and the writing, the music, the kinesiology between everybody was just like, wow.
Well,
it was great.
Just being a fan of yours, watching you come out of Dwight, it was fun to see you open up a little bit more as a player, and didn't open up too much.
No, yeah, and then that's kind of, yeah.
That's the
so
game.
yeah, the less is more thing.
So you did that till what year?
That ended in 2006.
Okay,
it came to an end in 2006.
And then you moved on. 2007 is Richard Thompson already.
No, in 2006 I ended up doing. I got the call and. From Richard's manager, if I wanted to do a Richard Thompson record.
Now, how did Richard know who you were? How did those people know to call you?
I think he got my number from Deborah Dopkin, who was a percussionist with Bonnie Raitt for years, and I think she, percussionist singer, and she worked with Richard on 1,000 Years,
okay.
a project that Richard has, and I think I came through her, so I was recommended through her to do the record. Because Richard wanted to do part Danny Thompson on upright and part electric on this. It was a Sweet Warrior record.
Okay. And that's your first gig. That's your first recording. And again,
with
you
Richard.
Got a guy who uses the band.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so you're playing with Richard. Now, how did the Merle thing happen? So that you became
so I did.
We
did some tours with Richard and. Scotty Joss, who I played with, I stood with him next to me from 88 to 2000 with Dwight. He was Dwight's fiddle player for, all that time. And I left Dwight in 2000 to go and work with Lucinda.
Right.
Because it was just like,
you'd done everything you could do, and it was an amiable.
It was time.
It was
and
an
then
amiable.
Bob ended up doing Lucinda, doing the Yoakum gig.
Yeah.
So which was kind of funny.
Right, but it was amiable, though, right? I
Yes.
mean, you're still friends with Dwight.
Yes, I've worked with him since.
Okay. Where we go? Get back to where we were.
So Scotty and I So it was 011 or 012. What year are we? 14. I think it was December 011.
Right.
And I got a call from Scotty. Scotty Johnson said their bass player had some health problems, and he didn't know if they'd be able to do a run in 012, in January of 012.
Okay. And where's he out of?
Merle is out of Redding, Palisadro, which is between Redding and
California,
and the foot of Mount Shasta.
Okay.
Beautiful ranch. And so Scotty goes, well, you have to learn. I can kind of tell you what the songs are.
You said he has how many songs?
Well,
in
he's
his
got
category?
his catalog is over 2,000 songs. And
that
there's
he
no
wrote
set list.
or just recorded.
Yes and yes.
Yes and yes. Okay.
And so he ended up. So Scotty said, "Well, I'm going to give you a list of songs that Merle might do."
Jeez.
Right.
Yeah.
That we have been doing lately.
Okay.
So I went up.
Does
and
he
I
make
had
set
to learn,
lists? Does he make?
No, there's no set list.
You get
He
up
just
on
starts
stage
the
and he
song.
just goes.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
So which is kind of and in bass and country music, you got to know the tune, or you got to kind of.
What'd you do? Just buy a bunch of CDs and go?
I
hibernate?
shedded them as much as I could. I started writing charts on everything, which was kind of which is kind of pointless because at a period of time you just got to let go of them.
What are some of his biggest hits? I know Mama Tried.
Mama Tried, Okie from Muskogee, Silver Wings. He had 40 number one hits.
In the country charts.
Yeah.
40.
Big City.
Okay.
Let me go down the set list.
Well, did he enjoy you? Did he like your playing?
Well, I went up there, and he goes, well, Scotty goes, well, you're going to have to come up and play with Merle for a couple days.
Right. Rehearsal.
Yeah, we were going to rehearse for a couple days, and then we were going to go out. And so you got to learn all these tunes. So I was really nervous because it's the Hag.
The Hag.
Yeah, and
it's a legend, man.
He's a legend.
I mean,
and so we went over his
doesn't get
house.
More legendary than that.
He is the man. We're in his living room, and we're all in a little round circle playing. I was playing through a little deluxe.
Yeah, yeah.
And the drummer's playing a little snare drum, and his kid's there, Benny playing guitar, and Scotty's playing fiddle and mandolin, and Doug Colosio, and Jeff the drummer, and Merle. And so we did That's the Way Love Goes. And he looks at me and he goes, "You've done this before."
Huh. That's great.
And then we did some other stuff. And
what kind of guy is he? Is he a good guy?
He's pretty straight ahead.
Yeah.
He's a maverick. Where he pretty much.
How old is he?
70. He just turned 77.
Okay, and he tours. How many dates a year are you doing?
I think they figured out. I think he did 150 dates.
You're
last year.
kidding.
Maybe
Are you on all those
120.
dates?
I've been doing the gig for the last 3 years.
Any mid-air collision
I
with
did have mid-air
Richard?
collisions, yeah, but I'll come to that part. So I ended up. So I did that year. I toured with Merle,
Right.
and it ended up that we ended up recording the electric record at that same time, and it just so happened that I had the time off with Merle. That when Richard recorded the electric record, I was in. We went to Nashville and recorded the record with Buddy Miller.
Okay.
With Michael Jerome and myself and Richard and Buddy Miller, which was incredible.
What year is that?
This would have been
12?
12.
Okay.
And so it worked out perfect. The record was done and then so forth and whatnot. And I finished touring with Merle. And then January came around and I was doing the Cayamo tour with Richard. Okay. So we did the Buddy Miller record. So it turned out that following year that I had a conflict where I was out with Richard and Merle had dates. So I was really torn on it because I really love the Merle gig and I love the Richard gig, but they're almost it's two separate deals entirely. But so I just was straight about, because Merle's such a straight ahead guy, I thought, well, I'm just going to be and tell him what the deal is.
Tell him the truth.
So I said, Merle, I did this record. I've been playing with Richard since '06. And I've been involved in this trio, and he goes, You know, do what you got to do when you're done. Just come on back.
That's excellent. Who did
So-
they get in the interim?
They basically what ended up happening was they got the keyboard player. They had 2 keyboard players at that point because they brought a piano player Floyd Domino in, and Doug Colosio was the other keyboard player, the original keyboard player. But Floyd Domino, Merle loves Floyd's playing. He's real great stride jazz kind of, he can really play. And he played with Asleep at the Wheel, and he's got like country nobility. He played with Waylon Jennings for years, and he recorded with George Strait, great fine musician. So basically, they just had Doug play the piano player play bass. He could play bass. He played bass as well. So he subbed for me.
I got you.
For that
Okay.
for a couple, like 3-4 months, well, because we were out touring on that record with Richard, the trio record.
So take us now to current day. You're doing both gigs.
Same thing, yeah. I'm continuing doing that. I'm right here. I'm in Chicago. We're playing the Millennium tomorrow with Richard, and
That's going to be a fun gig because it's
Gonna be fun.
Free Music Monday.
Fun.
Everybody
Free
likes
Monday.
free.
Everybody likes free.
Yeah, no, I think after last night's show, I mean, there was what was Tear Stained?
Tear Stained Letter.
That's just one of the funnest songs I've ever heard. You guys, it was an interesting mix last night because you played some, kind of quirky rock music, fusion-y, edgy stuff, and then you had some stuff that was just straight ahead, balls out rock and roll. That was fun. I mean, that's the only way I could describe it.
It's a fun gig, and what's great about Richard
And
is that he welcomes you to play. It's not like we have to sit
you
there
played your ass off.
where you have to play inside the box. It's not like
No, he doesn't want you to.
He doesn't want you. But it's the same but Merle. Merle is similar in that respect, where he wants to push it, but it's kind of in the country bag. But
Right.
but Merle is all about the groove. Both of them are.
Cool. Well, congrats, man.
Yeah.
Things are going well.
Beautiful thing.
And hopefully, we're going to do some stuff together again.
I hope so.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about, you played basses that I've manufactured over the years. I feel very proud because you are an equipment guy.
Yeah, I'm equipment.
We call you a tweezer.
A geezer.
Tweezer.
What I really liked about the Lakeland product when you were involved with it, I mean, you could go to any music store when you were selling to music stores at that time, and pick up a Lakeland bass, and it was like the consistency was like 99.9%. It was stellar. You could pick up any instrument, and it played great, it felt great, and it sounded great, and the consistency level was just unsurpassed.
Thank you.
And the quality of the workmanship.
Well, very good. We're going to try to do it again here.
I hope so.
Hopefully you'll be part of it. But thanks for sitting with us today.
Thanks for putting up with my cold.
Very good, sir. Okay. Have a good day.